Welcome to my Reflexology studio. Today I wanted to share a little bit about my 300-hour reflexology program. I got a lot of questions about it, and I'm hoping that this little slide tutorial will answer a lot of questions about why I teach a 300-hour program and what I teach in this program. So thank you for joining me. Let's see, here we go. So I chose to hybridize my original curriculum so that I could meet the needs of a lot of out-of-town students, and having it where I'm teaching theoretical lessons in live lecture formats, kind of in this sort of fashion that I'm doing right now. Of course, you're seeing a recording, but we do live anatomy and physiology, live classes on ethics and business and sanitation and hygiene practices and that sort of thing. That's all taught live online virtually. So you can join from the comfort of your bedroom or your living room or the office or wherever it is that you're at, and you don't have to be here in the studio until we're ready to do the practicum classes. And since reflexology is a hands-on modality, we do have plenty of practicum classes for that, right? So nice little hybrid blend of these two. It was able to reduce the costs, so students aren't having to show up for a weekly in-person class. I don't have to set aside specific time to host students here, so that cuts down on my costs, it cuts down on your costs, and that made a lot of sense. I'm still able to offer the full program at a $2,000 budget. Each of the modules are offered in a 32-hour increment, so that makes it easier. Students pay module by module instead of purchasing the entire program, instead of having to throw $2,000 towards a program immediately right up front. Students get to purchase each module and pay as they go. So as we do one module, students enroll and register, they pay for that module, and then when we're ready to set up dates for the second module, so on and so forth. So the online classes are where we do, again, we're exploring anatomy and physiology, wellness concepts, all of this theoretical, and this is a passive learning environment. There's not a lot of active participation as far as there's no hands-on component to it. So you're listening to my lecture. You are doing. We do actually do some active tactile parts in the in these online lectures. And so that's a nice component to that it helps keep us engaged. And of course, there's that classmate to classmate interaction, which is huge. It's such an important role in any kind of learning format, but especially in a reflexology program where you're looking at, there's not that many reflexologists here in the United States. There's very few reflexologists practicing here in Texas. And so having classmates that you can refer to, that you can have a long-lasting relationship with in terms of developing friendships and being able to reach out to them in the future. These are all very key portions to both the live online lessons as well as the practicum lessons. So the practicum classes are where we translate these online classes into tactile knowledge. So maybe we've been studying about the liver and some of the 100 key features that it functions that it has. Well, how does that translate into an actual reflexology session? What would a liver reflex feel like in the feet? What about on the hands? What about in the ears? And so we translate all of this theoretical knowledge. All of this knowledge then gets translated into our hands. And so we start looking for tactile changes in the tissues, in the reflexes that we're working. We learn how to palpate a reflex area. We learn, step by step how to do, so for example, going back to the liver, if we're working with the digestive system, so we start at the mouth and work our way all the way through that digestive tract. Where do we bring the liver in, and what is its role in a reflexology session? So that's where the practicum lessons are obviously going to be of a big important role there. And so in time, we develop this muscle memory that as you go along, you're like, oh yes, okay, this is where my thumb walking or I finger walk this area, or here's where I hook in and back up, or I'm rotating on a point over this particular area. So this is where we develop that muscle memory. It takes a little bit of time, but once you've got it down, it's funny, I do joke that I feel like after all of these years practicing, I probably could do reflexology in my sleep, and that's thanks to muscle memory. So the practicum lessons, as I'm sure you figured out, they're here in my studio here in Austin. I keep the classes fairly small, so I don't take more than 8 students at a time. But everybody has plenty of one-on-one experience. There's plenty of interaction between me and interaction between your classmates. You never feel like you're just drowning in a class of 20 or 30 students where you're like, help, I need some help, and nobody's paying attention to you. And so that's how I've developed the curriculum and developed the program in this way. So we do online lectures using Zoom software, and Zoom allows us to have these little boxes like you're seeing here, where we've got this interaction, so you can see your classmates. Everybody has to have a little webcam software on their, or hardware on their either they're using a desktop machine, or they're using a laptop, or they might be using a tablet. You can use your smartphone, but keep in mind your smartphone is going to be really small, so the text is going to be really a little more challenging. And then for students who can only listen to the audio lecture live, maybe they're in the middle of traveling or something. I've had that happen with students where a live lecture day, it lands on a day when they actually have to be on the road. So they can pipe in Bluetooth and just listen to the audio portion, and then they'll go back and rewatch the recording so that they can do they can follow along with each of the slides, and they can do all of the activities for that lesson. So that's a nice option to accommodate different schedules there. So textbooks that are required for this is Paula Stone's Therapeutic Reflexology, a step-by-step guide to professional competence. It is that to my knowledge anyway, and I've done a lot of research on this, it's the only reflexology textbook that we have here in the United States. There's other textbooks that have been developed by different schools, but this is the one that's been published on a much larger scale, and so it's not specific to Amy's reflexology school, or Jill's reflexology school, or Bob's reflexology school. Then we read the original works of Eunice D. Ingham, Stories the Feet Can Tell Through Reflexology, Stories the Feet Have Told Through Reflexology. This one was published a little while ago. You'll enjoy reading it, and this is the book that you will have to write a book report on. This scares some of the adult learners that come along. So what I'm looking for in a book report is what your impressions about the book were. What did you think? Were there concepts that were maybe harder to swallow? Were you a little skeptical about some of these concepts that Ingham was putting out there? These are the kinds of questions that I want you to be able to answer in a book report, so that I know you read it, and to get a sense of what you actually thought. What was your takeaway for this book? And then our third book here is Natter's Anatomy Coloring Book. We use the second edition by John T. Hansen. I love doing coloring books because it brings the theoretical knowledge down into a tactile area. So you're using your fingers, you're using your thumbs, you're holding a coloring pencil or a pen or a marker or something like this to bring in the color. And it's that connection, that kinesthetic connection between the mind and the body that helps this information to seep into our systems a little bit deeper so that it makes a little bit more sense. Anatomy and physiology is totally one of my loves. And I'm sure that you'll enjoy the lessons together, but the coloring book really kind of pulls that all together, and it's like, oh, I see, okay. Gives you a really nice visual and a very kinesthetic component to it. So here's a screenshot of what the online lessons look like. So you can see I've got in the middle of the screen, we've got a slide on respiration, and then to the side you've got myself at the top, and then 3 students who had their video cameras on at the time of taking the snapshot, and then 2 students who didn't have their video cameras on. So nice little interaction, and then it will show additional students down below that. And we record the video lectures, so these online live classes are recorded, so you can go back and you can re-review. And if you missed a piece, like it just wasn't really sinking in, or you wanted to like experience that again or go back through, and then of course I have downloadable PDFs of all of the slides that I share, so that again you can go through if you want to. Some students find it's really helpful to print all of the slides and have those so that they can take notes around that. And if that's a style or a type of learning that works for you, I say go for it. Here's an example. We have Simon, my teaching assistant, the cat in the middle. This was in the Introduction to Aromatherapy for Reflexologists Practicum lesson, where everyone was getting together and we made aromatic foot baths. And this was our challenge. How do we get essential oils and water to mix? Because oil and water doesn't mix, right? So this was a fun hands-on experience, and students were able to, we divided the class in half. So half of the students received a foot soak, and they had a practitioner, their classmate, who did the session for it, had them soaking, dried their feet off. And so it's again a very good hands-on, changing that role of client, practitioner, and then after they soaked, then our second round of students were able to soak, and then they became the practitioner. And here's another picture from a practicum day here in the studio. And you can see that we're using different kinds of reclining chairs, as well as a massage table with a really large bolster down here on the end. It's closest to us in this picture. So students will practice. I demonstrate initially techniques, students watch, and then they return that demonstration, and I will go around the room and work with their techniques, assist with body posture. Are your feet grounded on the floor? Are your shoulders real high? All of these things that come up, right? I'm sure you can imagine. Here's a lovely group of students. We had a great picture here. All those smiling, happy faces. We love reflexology. So some of the practicum lessons that we hold here end up becoming student clinics. And what this looks like is we get volunteers who register to receive a session during the student clinic. Depending on what we're focusing on in that student clinic, we might be focusing on a particular body system. So we'll look for volunteers to maybe have some challenges that are going on within that body system. For example, in the reproductive reflexology module, we see that we'll ask for people who maybe have fibroids or menstrual cycle issues, or maybe there's a history of prostate inflammation. something related to the reproductive system. And then, of course, we're looking for natural ebbs and flows. So we're looking for someone who, it's great. And when we get either one of the students, so a classmate or a volunteer who's on their period or ovulating or at one of the trimesters during pregnancy or postpartum, and maybe they're breastfeeding or not. And this is also where we work with pediatrics. So this is the first you get to jump in and try working with little teeny little babies and busy toddlers and school-age kids. And so it's nice to have this spectrum of experience that you get to work with. So do anticipate that you're going to work with folks spanning a range of ages and different kinds of constitutions. We'll have some that are, very healthy and they're doing really well and they want to use reflexology for health maintenance. And then we might have some people who are coming in for the student clinics who are looking for an acute health challenge to, get some relief from that, or they may have a chronic health challenge. So this is where we start developing those key skills that are going to serve you for years after graduation. Now, I always like to talk about budget because I get asked this a lot. So because the program is designed for you to register and pay module by module by module, you're not dropping a particular amount of money. There's not that upfront $2,000 cost. So I do encourage you to spend, budget for $2,000. That $2,000 should cover your tuition for the modules. Your textbooks, these are the 3 textbooks that we talked about earlier. And then typically you've got enough left over for a $60 to $80 portable recliner from like one of the sports stores like Academy or Dick's or something like that. Sometimes even in the summer I see them at the wholesale clubs like Costco will carry these types of recliners. So do a little bit of research. I've got 2 different portable recliners that we use in the studio, and I have an electric motor operated one, this leather recliner that's behind me, that I use as my primary chair, my primary recliner for my personal practice. And then I also have a massage table, so you'll get to experience what that's like to give and receive reflexology from a variety of different equipment, tools, so that you can go, oh, okay, I'm actually really liking this one, or this would work for a short period of time. And then, maybe down the road you want to upgrade to something. Now, if you're coming from out of town, you're going to want to plan 7 to 8 trips to the studio to get those practicum classes in. If you're missing a practicum class, there may be additional travel, depends on how your schedule goes. So I always like to give people a heads up that that's going to be, you're going to travel once for each of the modules, and then you're going to have to come back to do your final exam, right? So I have a little screenshot here of Airbnb in the neighborhood, in the area. You're looking at, if you're going to do like a room share, you're looking at, maybe $30 a night. If you wanted to get a whole space for yourself, obviously the cost will go up. I do recommend chatting with your fellow classmates once you enroll. See if people are interested in ride shares, if you're coming from the same area. Usually in each of the rounds of students that I get, I'll have maybe a couple of students coming from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or a couple of students that are both coming from Houston, a couple of students coming from San Antonio, that sort of thing. So if you have a classmate that's relatively close to you and you want to cut down on gas and wear and tear on your vehicle, maybe see alternate trips or something like that. That could be a good thing. If you don't have anybody that's traveling from your area, or maybe you're flying in, then you could maybe look for having a roommate, a local hotel or an Airbnb or something like that. So those are a couple of things to consider. We do have a Facebook group, and then of course when you enroll in the program, there is a chat section there, so you'll be able to chat with other classmates. So let's talk about case studies real quick. So case studies are an opportunity to hone your skills as you learn where the reflex locations are, the techniques, the routines, all of this. And you'll study SOAP note taking. This industry standard subjective objective assessment plan, SOAP. So this is how we document our reflexology sessions. This also prepares you if you want to sit for the American Reflexology Certification Board exam. You're going to have to hand over case studies that are written the same way. So this gets you prepared for that if that's something you would like to do. Typically, we look at it takes about 100 sessions to really feel confident in giving a full reflexology session to a variety of different kinds of people. So between your documented case studies and your practicum lessons here in the studio, by the time you graduate, you should have that 100 or so sessions under your belt, and you're like, yes, all right, I'm a reflexologist, I feel it. So here's an example of a session form from the textbook. There's 80 one-hour document sessions for the program. If you do shorter pediatric sessions that are half an hour in length, they're only going to be half of that documented session. So you'd have to do 2 pediatric sessions to count towards one of your 80-hour documented sessions. These can be any combination of persons and sessions. I don't put a restriction on that. My advice is try to get your hands on as many people as you can, while also allowing or allotting for time to do a full series of 10 sessions with the same case study. We find that 10 reflexology sessions consecutively, spaced not too far apart, so not one now and one in 3 months, but maybe, every week or every other week, do 10 sessions and see what takes place with your case study. So a little bit about me. I graduated from the Palmer Institute of Massage and Bodywork in 2004. I sat for my board exam in 2006. That's with the American Reflexology Certification Board. We shorten that to ARCB. I taught continuing education from 2005 until 2013 when I moved from Massachusetts here to Austin, Texas. And then, of course, by moving here, I was like, oh, there's no reflexologist nearby. Oh my goodness. And I was very spoiled in Massachusetts. We had, I was on the board of the Massachusetts Association of Reflexology for a number of years, very involved in that program. Still love that association is there. So we had, I think, 200 or so. We had a list of 200 or so graduates in the state of Massachusetts. So moving here, where I think at the current, I haven't checked really recently, but I think there's only 6 or 7 of us board certified reflexologists in the entire state. So that inspired me. I'm like, I need to develop a 300-hour curriculum. And I put the curriculum together. I hybridized it in 2018 as I was finding a number of students were wanting to come from out of town, but they couldn't come to a weekly class. So that's why my program is the way it is. I hope this answers a lot of questions for you. I certainly welcome additional questions if you're thinking about traveling, you'd like to do a discovery call, or if you're just interested in the class and you're like, okay, when's the next one? You can certainly ask for more information. I'm at thebarefootdragonfly.com. I have a contact page where you can send me an email. If you go to the making an appointment page, you can also schedule a complimentary discovery call. So I set aside about 15 minutes for those discovery calls to answer some quick questions. If you've got more in-depth questions, an email might be an easier way to reach me. So I would love for you to consider joining us. We need more reflexologists in the United States, and I thank you for considering my program, and I hope I hear from you.